Last week, it was reported that the matric pass rate had increased to 76.4% in 2021. The class of 2021 was the most affected by the COVID-19 pandemic because they had to endure 2 consecutive years of harsh exposure to the unrelenting pandemic. Now, let's discuss this further. We are now joined by Dr Deonita Damons, Executive Director at Boston City Campus. She joins us now for further insight into matric results. Thank you so much for your time, Dr Damons.
Thank you and welcome, and thank you for your viewers for listening and joining in.
Fantastic. Now, of course, just as my intro has said, calls for remote learning, of course, that cannot be attainable for most learners. What we do know, given the results announcement, is that this particular class, the class of 2021, was the largest in the history of the National Senior Certificate. What are some of the key insights that you've drawn, since the matric results were announced?
Well, first of all, in 2019, our pass rate for the matric results was 81%. In 2020, undoubtedly, we had a decline in the pass rate to 76. But the increase in the pass rate for the 2021 class just is indicative of the resilience of our learners, but also the commitment and dedication of the educators in supporting the learners through this very trying times. If you rightfully said, we had over 704,000 matriculants that sat for the National Senior Certificate in 2021. And throughout the 2-year period, granted that the NSC is a 3-year qualification and not a 1-year qualification, they were subjected to some very challenging times. And migration to online learning was not necessarily easy for everybody, because apart from the pandemic and the impact it had on their performance, it highlighted the access or the scarcity of access to resources and adequate resources for many of our matriculants.
Was the pandemic the only reason you think that we could have seen this decline in results? I mean, just ahead of the announcement of those results, a lot of analysts coming in to just criticize the state of the quality of education that some of our learners are currently exposed to. Just those criticism and the fact that we have declined, how does that reflect the state of education in the country, you think?
Well, we unfortunately have a very skewed educational platform, and many individuals are subjected to a poorer quality of education, and not because our educators are not qualified, but probably because our educators are not reskilled or continuously reskilled to meet the demand of the future skill and the future learner. They're also not reskilled in terms of the new way or modalities of learning and teaching. And it's a systemic issue, so it's not something that we can fix, and there's not a one fix for all. So it is going to take time for us to look at our education system and see how we can increase capacity, because we've got schools that are overcrowded, how we're going to make sure that kids have access to adequate resources. And given the fact that we do spend a lot of money in terms of our fiscus on education, how are we going to reskill our educators and get quality educators in the system that will obviously ensure that our pass rate and our performance improves over the years?
The sad reality is that, given just these results alone, many of those that have passed matric that belong to the class of 2021 will find themselves, unfortunately, in that unemployment bracket. Some won't even make it to university. I was listening to an interview just the other day where an institution said that they had 40,000 applications and they only have space for just 1,000. What are some of the most effective ways of addressing some of these concerns?
Okay, first of all, if a learner wants to improve their marks, they have the option of sitting for the second chance NSC, and they can improve their marks if that is what they ultimately want. On the other hand, learners might have to review the choice or the first choice of education or academic education that they want to pursue, and look at what else they have interest in. They should also look and investigate TVET colleges, which will give them technical skills, and technical skills are high in demand. demand. But other than that, we do have workplace-based programs like internships and apprenticeships and learnerships, where learners can still get the qualification while they're doing workplace and actively participating in the economy. So there are options for those learners, and they should not feel that they have failed and they don't have other alternatives.
But what are the chances that they go through the system, they attend a TVET college, they improve their marks, that they will be on that employment bracket? What other alternatives are there? I mean, with the COVID pandemic, we've seen a lot of young people trying alternative solutions, perhaps, starting their own businesses.
I think being an entrepreneur is first prize, if you can be an entrepreneur. But entrepreneurship is something that is innate. You need to want to be an entrepreneur. Most individuals go through the entire schooling want to be employed. And our new school leavers do have the option of becoming entrepreneurs, but for that they also need skills. And they can approach organizations like CEDA, which will assist these entrepreneurs in getting some funding in starting up their businesses. So there are organizations out there that can help them, but it is essential that they understand what skills they need and what kind of businesses they want to start, and make sure they get skilled in that specific area of expertise.
As we start the 2022 academic year, one of the key issues that was also raised and that needs to be addressed is that of an inclusive education system. How do we start to implement this as a country?
I think, first of all, one needs to ask if everyone knows what inclusive education means. We speak about inclusive education, but I think there's a lot of advocacy that still has to go into what inclusive education means. There's a lot of instructional, attitudinal, and even leadership barriers that impede the implementation of inclusive education. And for that to happen, we have to address those factors and make sure that we can ensure that the person coming into an education system, for it to be inclusive, we address mostly the attitudinal and belief system regarding learners with special needs being included in mainstream schooling.
Fantastic. Dr. Damons, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.